Hey, thanks for joining my talk. Today I'm going to talk about the combination of two very exciting topics, augmented reality and artificial intelligence. So let's jump right in. First, a little about myself. My name is Fabian Rücker and I came into the VR and AR space in about 2015 when I founded the virtual reality community called Frankfurt in Germany. In 2018, I founded with a few fellow friends the other non-profit organization called Virtual Germany, and we're basically a union of VR and AR meetups all across Germany, and we're trying to realize virtual events. Also, I'm working as an XR consultant, but today I'm here as a research scientist from Fraunhofer Institute for Computer Graphics Research. We at Fraunhofer, and I'm working in the Department for Virtual and Augmented Reality, work a lot in the field of computer vision. We've been working on model-based tracking for a few years now. You can see it in this video. It allows you to track an object in a video feed and even overlay it with synthetic data, as you can see here in this video. This is for example useful for overlaying repair instructions, as you can see here with this Porsche and this explosion design. Also for digital operating manuals, this can be very useful. Another use case I want to mention is quality assurance. In this video you can see how an automatic computer vision system detects if two components are either aligned good or if they are aligned badly. So this is another one of our use cases that we use at Fraunhofer. But of course we also work with head-mounted devices like HoloLens. In this case you can see how the model-based tracking works on our HoloLens 1. The problem with model-based tracking is the manual initialization, as you can see here in the screenshot down below. The problem is that you either need to rotate the synthetic image of the object you want to track in order to initialize the tracking, or you need to move your device around, or even your head if it's a head-mounted display. Well, not anymore. Now we're using artificial intelligence to estimate the initializing pose in order to start tracking automatically. Let me get into more detail while going into one of my projects that I've been working on last year with my colleague Thomas Pellerbauer. The task was to support sorting tasks using augmented reality with artificial intelligence technologies. Imagine this. You're looking at these objects and you don't initially know how am I supposed to sort them if they have a certain order. Wouldn't it be way easier to have a superimposition of colors, like for example this? This is what we've been working on in the last year, and I'm pleased to show you what we did and how we accomplished this. First of all, the architecture. We are using a neural network in order to detect and estimate the pose of each and every object in the camera frame. The problem is that this is very performance heavy and the neural network will not work on our HoloLens 2, which is why we had to establish a connection between a computer, where the computer analyzes each and every frame and then sends back the object's poses, meaning their position and their orientation relative to the camera, back to the AR device, which then is able to augment the reality, meaning superimposing the real objects with color. So let's go through this step by step. First of all, we need to send the camera frames to the computer in order for it to analyze them. How did we do it? Well, we take the most recent frame together with the pose of the AR HMD in the real world, and then we put everything together in a string or in a text file, and this is sent via WebSocket to the computer with Wi-Fi. Let's get right to the next step. Analyzing the frames. We want to analyze the frames in order to detect the objects which are seen within the frame and to estimate their pose relative to the camera. So the computer now receives the 17.txt and he gets the accompanying frame, of course. This is then analyzed by our neural network, and every object is then superimposed. If you would use a tablet or a smartphone for your AR application, you would be done now and you would just send back the picture and your display would just display this frame. But that's not possible for AR HMDs, which are see-through. You would need to put the objects in the virtual world and place them in the correct position and orientation. Therefore, the object's pose need to be saved in a text document and then, together with the pose of the AR HMD, is sent back to the HoloLens as 17 results.txt in this case. But the most interesting part is how do we detect those objects and how do we estimate their poses? This happens in the neural network, and I'm pleased to tell you a little bit more about this. So let's zoom in on the brain. Here you can see our neural network at work. You can see on the left side the captured data, and on the right side you can see the superimposed images. Even if some of the parts are cut off, they are still detected correctly. So how does this work? We are training our neural network with synthetic data. As you can see here on the left side, we take many pictures of this synthetic 3D model and then we try to find it in a real camera frame. On the right hand side you can see one of those models being surrounded by cameras in order to create those virtual renderings. Those are thousands of renderings. The problem is still the domain gap. And the domain gap describes the difference between the real photographs and the synthetic renderings. As you can see here, there's a huge difference, especially because the real objects are shiny and they might reflect light. So when we trained with just synthetic data, those results were not usable for real-life camera frames. So we needed to close this domain gap. This means either we needed to make the synthetic data look more realistic, or we need to take the real photos and make them look more synthetical. So here you can see both domains. On the left side you can see the real data, a real image, and on the right side you can see synthetic data rendering. What we did is we used the filter on the left picture and also on the right picture, and as you can see now they look a lot more alike. There is no more reflection on the left hand side and you would have a common domain. In this case it's the green domain. So now we've talked about two things already. Sending the camera frames from the AR HMD back to the computer, and how to analyze each frame in order to detect objects and estimate the pose. Let's talk about step number 3. Sending the poses back. Well, it works pretty similarly to sending the frames to the computer. Basically, we're sending the results which come out in the end of this process, and we send them back via Wi-Fi to our HoloLens 2. Now everything's coming together. We're augmenting our perceived reality with the data which we just received from the neural network. But there's one more problem which I'm going to show you now. Please take a look at this process. So, the HoloLens is in one specific state. It's creating the 17.txt. It sends it back to the neural network, and the neural network sends back the results to the HoloLens. The problem with this is that the user always moves around with his head a little during each frame which is sent. So information which was sent a second ago is not recent anymore. This might lead to problems where the superimposition of the 3D object, in this case the orange metal, is not on top of the actual object. How do we solve this problem? Well, we need to set the object poses relative to the world. That means there is a coordinate frame in our virtual environment, in our real environment, where there's a specific point, the 0 point, the origin of our coordinate space. Now remember what we're doing. When we're sending information from the HoloLens to our neural network, we are encoding not only the camera frame, but also the position of the HoloLens in the moment when it took this camera frame or took this photo. Then the HoloLens moves as the user moves himself. But we still have the position and the orientation of the HoloLens back when the photo was taken. So now, when we receive the poses together with the pose of the HoloLens when the picture was taken, we are able to put the virtual object first of all in the origin, and then we can transfer it to the HoloLens pose where it was when the picture was taken, and then using the poses which our neural network provided for us, we can set the object right on top of the real object. Therefore, we are independent from the user's movement because we are saving the user's position and orientation in the moment he was taking the picture. Alright, now that we've talked about how our artificial intelligence augmented reality network works, let's look how it performs. In this case, you can see two similar objects on the left side. As you can see, they are quite robustly detected and their pose is estimated pretty well. In this case, you can see how we have multiple objects or various objects in our hands and we turn them slowly. And keep in mind, there is no tracking active here. This is just single shot pose estimation, and this is real time what you're seeing here right now. We just filmed whatever the HoloLens was displaying in that very moment. So for each frame we get a new estimation of the pose of each object. This combined with tracking, which takes way less performance, could be really great. Lastly, here's an acid test from my colleague Thomas. You can see how he throws everything around on the table. And yeah, the detection network still works for most parts. There are still some mistakes here, as you can see, but most of the time it works great, and at least for initializing tracking it should work perfectly. So, to top it all off, here's our sorting demo of the different objects, and have fun. So obviously we are sorting for colors, so we put blue together, every blue object, then the red objects together, and lastly the yellow ones. As you can see, I left one object out, the violet one, so we do it in a good old-fashioned way, by hand. So now every color is together, and this was basically our project combining augmented reality and artificial intelligence in order to support sorting tasks. My name is Fabian Rücker. Please feel free to contact me under the given email address, or just add me on LinkedIn if you have any further questions. I'd be happy to talk with you about it. And yeah, thank you for your attention, and hopefully we can see another time in real life and shake hands. Thank you and goodbye.